Info Ninja. Welcome back to the dojo, everybody. I hope you had a very happy Easter. Man, I had a good one. I love the chocolate eggs, the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup chocolate eggs. I don't know why they taste better in egg and pumpkin form. And no, this episode is not brought to you by Reese's, but that is a personal recommendation. And when you get them, here's another personal recommendation. Put them in the freezer. They're better in the freezer. When you eat it, the flavor just kind of unlocks itself because it never quite gets frozen. It just kind of gets cold and hard, kind of like my ex.
Johnny, you're covered in rejected black guy sperm. You look like a Kardashian.
You are in the dojo, you are in the place of info, and I am here to maybe answer a question you haven't asked yourself before. But have you been noticing any protests going around? I know the liberals are doing their crazy, stop the whatever protest, or hands off, that's it, the hands off protest. I have seen some of these people personally out on the streets. They're just advocating to bring Sesame Street back to Iraq. They really want to fund a DEI musical in Ireland. Anything they can do to bring back all the woke spending. I guess that's what they're all about, because I don't know what they're out there protesting. Are they protesting the deportations? Are they protesting Doge and what they're doing? What are they protesting? And the funniest part is most of them don't even know.
He ain't lying.
But all this protesting taking place made me ask myself a question. When was the first protest in America and what was it about? And I thought, maybe it's civil rights stuff. And it goes back way further than that. It goes back 400 years, folks. The first protest was 400 years ago. And believe it or not, there'll be no surprise here. It was started by a woman. So the first person, the woman who started the protest movement that we see today, it started 400 years ago in America. Her name was Anne Hutchinson, and she was from Massachusetts. So the year was 1637, and she lived in a Massachusetts Bay colony. It was like a little fledgling type settlement from what I can see. Wooden homes, muddy paths, kind of a community controlled by the Puritans. The Puritans were a religious movement of the time, and they were very strict. They believed in 100% conservative values, but to the extreme. They were all men. Women weren't allowed to do anything. This was 400 years ago, folks, so don't rip on them too much. And if you screwed up, they would kick you out of the community, literally exile you from the community. So we just want to set the stage of this old 1600s cold New England, Massachusetts town. This is where she lived with the Puritans, 46 years old when this started. And get this, the mother of 15 kids. 15 children, and by all accounts, she was a very skilled midwife. She had a lot of experience there, but she was what it was described as sharp-minded and unshakable when it came to her convictions. So she would lead weekly meetings in her home to discuss sermons. She was very deep in her faith, and then she made a mistake, especially as a woman, but anybody questioning the Puritans back then, that religious movement in Massachusetts, were making a huge mistake. But she, a member of the faith community, decided to push back, and things did not go well. And to us, that may seem like normal these days. You can push back, you can ask questions, but not back then. It was darn right revolutionary, unheard of, and also very dangerous. So what exactly was her protest? This was not a march with signs or a sit-in. That wouldn't come for centuries more. Anne's protest was an intellectual and spiritual protest. So she argued that the colony's leaders were preaching a covenant of works, the idea that good behavior earned salvation, over a covenant of grace where faith alone was enough. And that's what the Bible actually teaches us. If you actually read the Bible, you are saved by faith alone, by grace. not by your works, thus any man should boast. That's directly from the Bible, and the Puritans were preaching you have to work to earn your salvation, and she was saying, no, you get your salvation because of what Jesus did on the cross. You should do good works after you're saved, but that's not what saves you. This debate is still going on today, folks, but that was the first protest in the United States was about, are you saved by grace or are you saved by works?
You stupid woman!
So to the Puritans, this was not a theological debate or a spiritual protest, so to speak. It was a direct challenge to their authority by a woman. So Anne's home meetings grew during this time. Remember, she would have home meetings to discuss sermons, and dozens and sometimes over 60 people crawled into her parlor, men and women alike. So this was radical. Women were not supposed to lead religious discussions at all, and that's still a debate that goes on today, especially not ones that criticized the church. So they accused her of heresy and what they called troubling the peace. In November of 1637, Anne was put on trial in Cambridge. She argued scripture with them point per point and held on to her theological beliefs. And her supporters did not sit quietly. Apparently, they openly supported her, and that risked their own reputations. So this collective defiance, so to speak, so that's Anne, that's her supporters, everybody vocally backing her, is what historians point to as America's first protest. And I would have been behind it. I would have been behind that message as well, but that is the story of the first protest ever to happen here in the United States. Do you want to know what happened? Yes, you probably do, because I did. So this is the outcome of what took place. So the trial did not end well for Anne.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
She was convicted of heresy and sedition. She was banned from the colony, banished from the colony and excommunicated from the church. And her supporters also faced punishment. So the people that backed her, so they received fines, disarmaments, they took their guns from them, or they exiled them. Anne and her family had to leave town, so they moved to Rhode Island, which was kind of a home for religious dissenters at the time. But that did not go great for her, because in 1643, she and most of her 15 children were killed during a Native American attack. Something that the Puritans at the time called divine justice. She had it coming. Wow. So that is the story of how the first protest, what it was about, how it started, and how it ended here in the United States. Started by a woman, and she got everybody killed. Hi-yow! Info Ninja. If you liked what you heard, please give me a thumbs up, a comment, and a share. You can find us on X at Info Ninja Show, on Rumble, Truth Social, YouTube, and of course, anywhere podcasts are sold.